All right, well, welcome everyone to today's webinar from Help Systems. We're broadcasting live from Eden Prairie, Minnesota. Excited to be with you today to talk about easy IBM migrations with near zero downtime and how to use Robot HA to migrate your data to a new IBM Power Server, partition, cloud image, whatever you might be doing today, because there are many options out there. This event is live, but we are recording today for those who might want to play it back at a later point in time. We will have a little Q&A at the end. You certainly can send us chats through the chat feature or the question feature. And then you will get an email after the event with handouts, a copy to the handouts, of course, the presentation itself. We're going to do a little live demo today. And let's see, what else do we have? We have some polling questions along the way. So very excited to be with you here. And I'm Tom Huntington, Executive Vice President of Technical Solutions at Help Systems. I've been with Help now for a little over 30 years, and I'm also an IBM Power Champion. So I'm very proud to be part of the IBM Champion program and being able to share my expertise. I work with a lot of our business partners like IBM and other partners from around the globe, and of course our customers, and I work with our development team, our support team, and everybody here at Help Systems. It's a great role, so really love it. And I'm joined by one of my fellow colleagues and ex-customer at one point in time, Mr. Mark Amacher. How are you today, Mark?
I'm good. I'm good. Glad to be here.
Can you
A
share a little
little
bit
bit.
about your background?
Sure, sure. So, like Tom said, customer for 20 plus years. I worked at companies like American Express, IBM, and Discount Tire. Been with Help Systems about 2.5 years, and you know, in the past 20 years that I've known Tom, I bugged him about having a high availability type product, and here we are. I'm working on it for Help Systems. So, isn't that great?
Yeah, it's very exciting to have you here. And I remember those days when you were working at Discount Tire saying, when are you guys going to get into HA? So
Yep.
we are here, and we have been now for 3 years. So thank you for joining me, Mark. And Mark's going to help out with today's presentation. Our agenda is pretty short. How will you migrate? Robot HA for migrations, and a live demonstration. And let's kind of just get started with the first topic on how will you migrate. And as we do that, we also want to talk a little bit about what we're seeing in the marketplace in regards to high availability. And one of the things that Help Systems been doing for 5 years is the IBM marketplace study. It helps us, it helps IBM, it helps our partners understand what's on the mind of customers. And no surprise, security was number one, and then high availability and disaster recovery planning number two. And yet, when I think about this, HA has been around for many years, and I think when we dive into that, part of the story around HA also is this migration story and wondering how we're going to move data from one system to another. You've accumulated a lot of IBMI data. After all, as IBM says, it is the system of records, and it really has become a database server for many of us. Also from the marketplace study, where we had 650 customers fill out the survey this past year, we see again about 50% of the marketplace has high availability already in some form. I think this is, the marketplace study kind of reflects those active customers, and maybe this year was a little bit skewed a little bit more towards the larger customers, but we would expect somewhere in that number today as you talk to different customers. Some of you are using tape, virtual tape libraries. We see a lot of that, and we also hear people talking about doing cloud backups. Also in this year's survey, we added a new question in that, what are your plans for IBM I upgrades? Are you going to be upgrading hardware, software, both, or no, you're not in 2019? And as we tally up the numbers or total up the numbers between the 11% and 31%, we come up with 42% of you are upgrading software and hardware this year. And for good reasons. There's various Power 6s and Power 7 boxes that are going out of service plan. And of course, we know 7.1 and below of the IBM I operating system is really unsupported by IBM themselves. So good reasons to move forward and get going. So as we look at some of the issues in migrating, Mark, what are your thoughts on this? Okay, Mark, you still muted?
Sorry about that, folks. Yeah, so zero and near zero downtime. A lot of times when you're trying to do these migrations, the business doesn't give you time, plain and simple. And you need to do it as fast as possible. So something that helps with a logical replication like Robot HA is that we can achieve that zero or near zero downtime. Uh, Time for testing. So basically, you're going to new hardware or you're migrating somewhere new. Your business wants to be able to test their applications. Uh, if you wait until you do the migration and you encounter problems, you're in trouble. So the beauty about using Robot HA is that you can do a test on that box before you actually do your migration. Your data is there, and you can play with it a little bit. Process. Sometimes the process to save and restore becomes complicated. Um, Oftentimes you have to figure in several go or no go decision points. With Robot HA, you can just do a role swap and do your final testing, and you're off to the races. You're good to go. Uh, how are you going to move your data? So a lot of folks, might be the first time that they've done an operation like this, or they don't do it very regularly, and you have questions about how to do that. A lot of folks will do save and restore type operations, uh, but with Robot HA, we can do it all ahead of time and have the data there for you. Security, sending a tape over via mail, if you're sending it off site somewhere, that can sometimes be an uneasy feeling. Using Robot HA, you're going to use logical replication, which keeps your data within the pipe, and you're not sending your objects outside of your controlled environment. How to keep your data up to date between the source and target. So things to think about with that. Uh, if you're purely using tape, that's very time consuming. With Robot HA, your logical replication happens instantly, and your data is always up to date. Another migration issue that you might run into is different hardware features and really OS features too. Sometimes you can migrate to hardware that's completely different. Maybe it's SAN based. Maybe your OS level is higher than the OS level you're on. A product like Robot HA will be able to handle that for you. It's indifferent to things like that. And the last thing, pretty important, you don't do this every week. Unfortunately, we do. So we can help you plan out your processes and help help create and deliver your or help create and execute your plan.
Yeah, I think that that's really a key point, Mark, is that you don't have the experience maybe, and you need experience, and that's where our team can come into play. So, what do you think the solution is? Then, what are some options out there?
Well, some of the options, side by side migration. If you're just upgrading your hardware and you're gonna keep it on premise, a lot of times you'll bring in the new hardware. You can set it up right next to your old piece of hardware, uh, connect it via your network, and migrate the data, um, you know, as quickly as possible in between the two boxes since they're side by side. You can direct connect them. That's probably your best bet. However, a lot of folks are also uh, putting their boxes outside of that, so they wouldn't be a side by side migration. Uh, Sorry, Tom. Let me go back to the side by side a little bit more. So,
Sure.
obviously your network performance is better.
Hmm.
You control the whole environment. That's the beauty about a side by side like that. Everything is in the data center together. It's more secure. Everything's faster. If there's something goes wrong, you're there to fix it. So
Yeah, and that's certainly one option. The nice thing with logical replication, of course, though, it is journal and object-based replication. So this can be done over the wire and can keep things in sync and giving you the ability to keep the data up to date between the two servers while you continue business locally and then eventually do your role swap. Certainly, what we can do is we can hold the migration too, to a certain extent, If you're doing side by side, as Mark was talking about, you can hold the actual apply process while maybe you move the server over the weekend physically to a new location, and people do that, and then start replication up once the new hardware is in place at the second location. And then, of course, once it comes time, you can then switch the replication and make the old server DR HA, or eventually upgrade that. The reason you're upgrading your hardware is probably because it's becoming out of date and out of, not necessarily out of sync, but out of date, and it's not maybe keeping up with your business. And so the thought of having an old server for DRHA is not always the best approach, because you might not be able to run your business there. So let's move on to our first polling question here and ask that, what have you used in the past? You can select all that apply, so this shouldn't take too long. We've done save and restore with tape as the main method, save and restore with VTL. Another replication software product has been used in the past. We've done SAN storage replication, which is certainly an option, or I have never done this before. I'd like to see what kind of experience we have out there. It's looking like we have a fairly experienced crowd, Mark. What do you think? It's looking like nobody has never done this before.
That's
That's fun.
good,
But that also tells me that they're interested in it and they're looking for other options, right? So.
right?
Cool. Just a few more moments while you do this. Just a reminder, next week we do have a couple of webinars. We have best practices around BI and what's going on in the market with BI. And then that's on Tuesday. And then Thursday, my colleague Chuck Lazinski and I are doing the work management webinar with Common, kind of a 101 on work management on IBM. That's going to be very exciting. Don't want to miss that one. We'll be talking about all kinds of fun things. All right, let's see. Let's close this poll out here, and let's see. Share it to everybody out there. You'll see in the audience we have a fairly experienced crew with us. We only have a small fraction that have never done this before. 83% have used save and restore, very common. That is often used in combination with replication software, but also seeing a creeping up of the virtual tape library. Excellent. Well, thank you very much for doing that. Let's move on in our presentation, and we'll talk about Robot HA a bit more, and talk about the steps, first of all, for moving forward. Again, we can do side by side. We could do a virtual image or virtual partition, VM, whatever you want to call them today. The rest of the industry is calling them VMs. I think IBM would like us to call our partitions VM. So when I say VM, it's really another partition. Locally or remote, we're going to be doing that. So what we have to do is load some software on source and target. That would be the Robot HA product in this case. We're going to probably then seed your system, as Mark likes to call it. We're going to, at some point, you maybe have done a full system 21 save. We can take that, cart that over to the new system if we need be. If it's side by side, obviously it's easier to cart it over there. We also, however, could do save and restore via the network and using the HA software itself, but then we can define libraries and directories to replicate and what we need to keep in sync. Start the journaling and apply changes process. We'll do that for you. And then, of course, as part of this, we want to verify the data is current on the target system, and then test, and more tests for an extended period of time, making sure the data is keeping up and that it is what you expect it to be. And basically, then you also need to verify that you can use the target application, because there may be some things that you've forgotten about along the way. And that's why the nice thing about software replication, logical replication, is we can do these things side by side. Mark, any thoughts on the steps process?
Yeah, yeah. It's pretty from a high level. It's pretty much the same for all customers. However, all customers are different, and so there's unique things that come up. But the beauty about this is we do this a lot, and we can follow the steps pretty well, and we can adjust as needed.
Excellent. Very good. All right, so let's talk about Robot HA a little more, just to kind of remind people on how this product is put together. First of all, I run into a lot of people, Mark, that don't really understand local journaling and remote journaling and how it works, and that it's really part of the operating system, and it has been in the operating system for 20 plus years now, and our product's been around since then. And the local journaling existed way back on the system 38 days. But anyways, so part of that is there are only certain objects that actually are going through those local and remote journals. It's physical file data, data queues, data areas, the IFS. This is happening real time. Think nanoseconds. If it's not nanoseconds, then your network is probably too slow. Now, the other thing that kind of makes our software unique is we don't read the audit journal for what objects have changed on the system. So we use the Save Change Object API. Save Change Object APIs gives us something that is a table that's updated internally on the system automatically by IBM operating system. And so we can read that to say, okay, every so many seconds or every so many minutes, we're going to look for what's new and send it over to the target system, spinning less cycles on your production box because we're not reading the audit journal. And it also helps you keep more in sync, right? Because that thing is, you've been depending on that APIs and that save change object stuff for years when it comes to just back up the tape. So that's how we send new objects back and forth, or I shouldn't say back and forth, or to the target system. We do read the audit journal in an interval basis for profiles and spool files if we need to, and that's kind of up to you and what you're going to be doing from a replication process. So anyways, IFS and library objects are included in our solution, and that's how Robot HA works. Now, if we spin ahead here and talk a little bit about what you could migrate and how you could migrate, we today have to think in a lot of different ways. Migration could be to cloud or another on-premise type system. So in this case here, we can on-prem could be a single system. We can migrate to a VM in your data center in a cloud infrastructure. If you don't know, Google and SkyTap and IBM themselves are all looking to support the Power IBM I environment in their clouds. And there's a lot of other partners out there. And I see many of you out there today that have been doing this for years as VMs. So it's really not, or MSPs, it's nothing new. But the key to this whole thing is the target needs to be another IBM I partition. This is not a cloud backup solution. This is a replication solution. Mark, any other thoughts on this topic?
Yeah. Like you said, there are many different flavors of doing this. Fortunately, with Robot HA, we can handle all of them. Different hardware, different OSs, different sites and things like that. So it's good for all that stuff.
Excellent. Yeah, and just to drive home the point, just another set of diagrams. You got your on-prem data center. Where do I want to go? Do I want to go to the cloud? I'm going to need another copy of Robot HA up on that VM running to help shuffle that data. Do I have another data center somewhere in the world? I need another copy of Robot HA running over there. But once those two are established, we can keep that data in sync until you're ready to do the role swap. And of course, side by side. And we know customers that do side by side, and they might just use the Robot HA process just to do that conversion side by side, and maybe you don't plan on having an HA or DR type location somewhere else, and that's fine too. We know some customers that they just need to move their business and they can't necessarily yet afford to have a target system. So benefits of logical replication, Mark, that's over to you.
Yeah. So, like we kind of mentioned before, you can have different disk configurations, whether it be SAN or going to a cloud or whatever. So, logical replication with Robot HA handles that. The target system can be on a different OS. So, you know, there are a very few instances where you would go down an OS level, but not very many. Usually people want to go up, and we can handle that. So we could go from a 7.1 system to a 7.3 system, and it would allow you to do your testing on the 7.3 side um, when we tested our role swap, basically. So that's there in place for you. We can do side-by-side or distance migration, so they could be in the same data center or they could be across the country. A lot of folks that we see are going away from their own uh, replicated hardware and having somebody else host that in a different region. So that's a very common thing that we're seeing now. So we can handle that. Both systems are active. Uh, Production, even when you're doing the testing, for the product for your applications, your production system is up and running, so we don't affect that at all. Uh, keep the data and application up to date. So other than when you're doing the test, the changes that happen on your production system go over to your backup system instantaneously. Uh, and like Tom said, all the journalable type activities to files and things like that go over right away. We can point to more than one target. So you could point to a system that's local, and then you could also have like a DR system that's off-site. So we can go to or actually more than two different
Yeah.
target boxes. Um, and the last thing, your team's handling the data in the application. So you're doing all the work.
Yeah, they're involved in the process, right? We don't want to
Yep.
just, do this and then walk away and you don't know what we did. We certainly
Yep.
want you involved, and that's kind of been the style of help systems in general. I know many of you have some of the robot software already, and that's been your experience in the past with us and what we do. So I'm going to do a little live demo for you and just kind of talk through the process and share my desktop. So, whoops, let's do this and get rid of that. And Mark, you see my desktop with two beautiful green screens, or one black and white, one green?
We see it.
All right, so I'm on my source system, Wisdom, and I have a target system up and running, also called Academy. We do the familiar RBO menu that takes us into the robot menu where we have other products, and we have the robot HA green screen interface, and we can see we have a production system or a source system, and we have a target system over here called Academy. Now we've obviously pre-installed the software. Um, we have it configured already, so they're communicating. We've started the TCP/IP process, and the synchronization process is up and running on both sides, on the source and the target. I can go in to my synchronization attributes panel. This is where I see what's defined already in this set of libraries, and we'll see we have user profiles, we have IFS directories and whatnot. We don't have a lot of time today for our demo part, but what I'm going to do is I want to migrate a library, and I want to migrate that library over to my target system, and I want replication to begin. So first thing I should do is to verify that the library is not there, right? Because we can see we don't have any libraries that start with HAM, all right? So I'm going to add a library back on my source system, and that library is HA migrate. All right, common name for us, right? So, and then I'm going to send it to my server called backup. The from library, or the to library, is going to be the same as the from library, and I'm going to tell it that I want to look for new objects every 2 minutes. I could go lower than that, but for our test today. And then if you're not using journaling, Robot HA is very easy to just add a library, and we'll take care of the journaling for you. We'll manage it for you and everything else. So right now what I'm doing is I'm creating this rule on my source system. It's talking local and remote journals from source to target, and I have a new rule out there. Now at this point in time, I haven't sent that library over there yet. So if I do a refresh over on this screen, the library is not there. But when I take option 8, Mark, what's that going to do?
That's going to do a save while active, and then it's going to FTP that file across to restore the file, and then it's going to catch up with any of the journal entries that had happened during the save.
And there it is. It's over on our target system. Now, we do have a few objects in there, and we do have some physical files in there. So I kind of went through that kind of quickly, but let's go ahead and do F21 over here. And I think I have, yeah, right there, I have my friendly little easy view product from Help Systems. And if I do that over here and actually change my library name, I migrate. Great. How am I doing? All right. So I now have that file over here. They both are, I'll just come in and we'll take our good friend Scott and we'll change his name, and we'll put Mark. Actually, we'll change this to Tom, right? The idea is that changes, and we'll change the second one to Mark. And Um, as we do that, of course, I hit refresh over there. Okay, it changed the data. Maybe I should try that one more time. That happened rather quickly, Mark. So we'll change this
Good
one to,
idea.
yeah. I know you and I are, we're Packer fans, right? So go Packers. Football never ends when you're a Packer fan. And lo and behold, it changed the data. So we migrated a library. Things are keeping in sync. We've used EasyView to verify the data. Life is good. We can now go ahead um, and do our other planning related to the migration while the data from production to target is keeping in sync. We could run this way now for, 3 months, 6 months, whatever the scenario may be. So that's that for the demo. Let's bring our good friend Mr. PowerPoint back up here and move on a little bit. So our next polling question is up for us. And let's launch that. You should see a polling question up in front. How can we help you with your migration? You need an assessment as we've never role swapped before. We'd like one-on-one demo of Robot HA. We need a demo on using Robot J for migration. You just want a tech update from Help Systems. My colleague Chuck and I do 600 of these a year where we walk you through what's new at Help Systems, talk about your environment. Great session, really love it. And then the last one here is we need a review of our lack of automation. We're finding more and more customers haven't been keeping up with their automation goals. And you certainly can go ahead and answer this polling question while we wait. And we will share those results shortly. Mark, so people, I didn't show IFS. What's the process with IFS if you want to get that over to the target system?
Sure. Basically the same thing. Identify what you need, and then you'll build the sync attribute just like you did for the library. So you do an F6, and you would just select IFS versus library, and then you would put in your path, and it copies it across just like that. Does a save and a restore, and bam, it's over there.
Awesome, awesome. All right, let me close our polling question, and we'll move on to our next slide, which is in summary, what you saw today. Robot HA can certainly help you with your system migration. Mark is part of our services team here. He can help train and assist with this process. Our sales team can help work with you on these short-term engagements because these are generally, you know, month, 3 month, 6 month, maybe a year project. It just depends upon how complicated your environment are. And our support team is always here if you have any questions. Mark and I were talking yesterday. We did an excellent webinar on remote journaling and how it works, a topic called 101 with Larry Youngren, one of the guys and architects behind this technology on IBM. Certainly free webinar, go out and watch it. I really recommend it also. So in summary, you should also know Help Systems does not just work on Robot HA, we also work on Power HA. So in a short term, Mark, you asked the question as a customer, when are you going to get into HA? Well, Help Systems over the last 3 years has become very involved in HA with both Power HA and Robot HA. We also have managed backup services, disaster recovery as a service, and disaster recovery on demand services that we can help you out with, along with all the other robot and IBM products that we work on. So been wonderful working with you. We do have a couple questions out there. And Okay, well, and the question is, can you send me the webinar appointment for the work management presentation that we have coming up? Absolutely. Work Management 101. If you don't know work management or you have team members that don't know about work management on IBMI, they're missing the boat. You need to come to that. So Mark, if somebody wanted to get started and maybe they're using some other solution out there, any tips on what they might want to think about as they transition to Robot HA?
Sure. So some things that we do things a little bit differently. I think we do them better than some of our competitors, and obviously price is always an important factor. And I think we're very competitive in that aspect. So yeah, just call your sales rep if you'd like a demo.
Absolutely. Well, thank you all for joining us. Mark, thank you. It's been wonderful working with you. And I really appreciate your time today. And to our customers that are listening in today, have a wonderful day and enjoy your work life, enjoy your families. That's all from
Thanks
Help
every
System.
Thanks everyone.